We don't got no time for no crime. We don't got no time for crime. Sick kids and needless. Innovate. Save communities. It's time for change.
On the campaign about crime prevention, UNDP calling to win $3,000 in this competition. See the website for more information.
www.bb.undp.org. Entrance must be 16 to 35 and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. Submission ends November 5th. Social innovation for change.
Welcome to the Winn Weekender, a comprehensive recap of the major story making the news this past week. This week on the Winn Weekender, we look at LIAT, the regional carrier. We speak to the company's new CEO, David Evans, about his plans to revamp the airline. Winn TV's Ken Richards has the details.
LIAT appears to be taking the bull by the horns in a bid to whip up the regional airline into a leaner, more efficient operation. The company says as a result of its fleet transition program, LIAT will be a smaller airline in 2015. Observers interpret this to mean that there will be job losses at the company. We asked CEO David Evans about that and other matters related to LIAT. Now, you're reportedly on a proposed cost-cutting initiative. In terms of your expenditure, how do you plan to achieve this?
Well, let's start, as any business should do, with the assets it is deploying in the marketplace. And in the case of an airline, that's really very simple. It's how many airplanes are we flying? Historically, we have an operating fleet of about 10 aircraft. That goes a little bit up, it goes a little bit down, but on average it's about 10. Now, during the course of this winter, that will reduce to 8 because we are in the middle of a fleet transition program. We're moving out of our old and Dash 8 aircraft that we've had for some time and replacing them with brand new ATR aircraft. And you know, customer reaction to the new aircraft has been extremely positive. So that's good news. But to get there, we've got to go down a little bit. We expect to take delivery of a 9th aircraft in the first quarter of next year, and then we will operate throughout the year with a fleet of 9 aircraft. Now, that is on average about 16% less in terms of fleet and capacity than we've historically operated with. And any responsible business has to say, well, if you are removing that amount of capacity that you're giving to the marketplace, you have to look at your costs as well. Otherwise, you know, you're setting yourself up for some difficult times. So yes, we do have to address our costs as well as addressing our revenue.
There is some concern about possible job cuts. Surely that is not something you can avoid if you genuinely want to cut costs and if you want to make the airline smaller.
Well, I think what we've got to do is look at the way we operate. If there are inefficiencies in the way we operate, then we have to drive those out of the business, yes. Equally, I have to say that I can't say there will not be any job losses. If there are, clearly we will try to manage these in the best way possible and where we can on a voluntary basis. But I can't say that there will be no job cuts because that would be not being correct. So where these may happen, as I say, we will try to manage these in the best way possible. At this point in time, I certainly cannot put a number on any job losses because this is work that we're engaged in doing at the moment.
You have spoken of consultation with your staff and their representatives. How open and frank will those talks be? How do you approach that troublesome matter?
It is. You're quite correct in saying it's a great challenge for any business anywhere in the world. I would like to think that we have a good dialogue with our staff and our representatives. I make sure I meet with our umbrella body that represents all 11 trade unions that we have in our business on a regular basis, at least once a quarter. And quite recently, I spoke to them all and said we're about to go into our budget planning process. I made it clear that we will be a smaller airline next year, and therefore we have to address the costs that we have in our business. So we've had that initial conversation. What I would like to do is work through in a lot more detail have our plans, a range of scenarios, and at that point I think it's very important to get back and talk with our staff and their staff representatives on what this may mean in terms of how the business is shaped going into 2015.
Those likely to be affected will most likely be disappointed. How do you manage a smooth transition of that process?
One needs to be quite clear on why change needs to happen. It's human nature to be cautious, even sometimes fearful of change. But without change, of course, you can make no progress. So I think everyone needs to understand very clearly what the rationale is. Why are you doing this? Why are you changing? I think it's incumbent upon us to make that very clear. And then we have to look into the detail of what this means right across the business. And if we are talking about job cuts, then how those are going to be managed, how they're going to be phased in, and as I said, wherever possible, any reductions in jobs that may take place, one would want to do on a voluntary basis.
We don't got no time for no crime. We don't got no time for crime. Sick kids and needless. Innovate. Save communities. It's time for change.
On the campaign about crime prevention, UNDP calling for Winn $3,000 in this competition. See the website for more information.
www.bb.undp.org. Entrance must be 16 to 35 and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. Submission ends November 5th. Social innovation for change.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Winn FM.
Winn FM's mission is to contribute meaningfully to the information, awareness, and the development of our nation and the region through the building of educated and informed communities. Winn FM faces the issues squarely, without shying away from controversy, while striving continuously to provide balanced, responsible reporting.
Better music, better talk, better radio. 98.9 Winn FM.
Welcome back to the Winn Weekender. We continue our look at LIAT and the new CEO's plan for the airline.
Have you factored in the possibility of industrial action? LIAT is known to be prone to strikes.
That is always a possibility. One can never discount that. I would like to think that if we are having a good, honest, open dialogue with rationale for changes being clearly understood across the piece, that we'll be able to manage our way through this. No one says this is going to be easy. I do feel, however, that we have to change in LIAT. We're a great airline. We've got a great history. We've got a great constitution. But standing still is rarely an option for any business. And what I see at the end of this, if I can describe very briefly my strategic outlook for LIAT, I can summarize it in 3 words. And those words are consolidate, focus, and grow. We're in the consolidation phase now. We need to fit our business to the size it will be next year. Having done that, we want to focus relentlessly and with a laser focus on how we conduct our business, how we market our business, how we sell our business, how we deliver our service to our customers. And that is a terribly, terribly important part. And that I see occupying much of our time during the course of the next year. Once you've done that, you then get into the phase which everybody wants to happen. LIAT will grow. There's no question in my mind about it. It must grow. Any successful business must grow.
How do you think you will succeed, though, where others have failed?
By persevering, by letting everybody understand why we're doing what we're doing. I think that is terribly important. We will put our heads down. We know that we have to make changes to LIAT, but I genuinely believe that these changes are those that set the platform for the growth that I've just been talking about. So there is a difficult period to go through, but there is also a period of growth that sits beyond that, and I think we need to focus on that as well.
The airline still has, to some extent, the problem of customer relations. Some of your passengers continue to complain on social network that they occasionally receive less than professional treatment. Mm-hmm. How do you overcome what can be considered that level of negativity?
I think I have to acknowledge that our operational performance in LIAT is certainly not where I would like it to be. I've just described what I call the focus phase of the strategy, and as part and parcel of that, we have to look at every single customer interaction we have, from someone going onto our website, picking up the phone to our contact center, going through a travel agent, all the way through the journey process until he or she finally arrives at their destination. And that is a lengthy and quite complex process.
The changes you're making include a review of your fares. You've announced that. To what extent will that mean lower fares for the traveling public?
In almost all cases, we will have lower lead-in fares than we've had before. If I can just use Dominica as an example, our lowest web fare between Dominica and Antigua used to be $132. That's the
US
airline
dollars.
fare without taxes, I hasten to add. But what we are charging, that will reduce by more than half. It'll reduce to $60. But I think what's more important to say in this fare reconstruction is that historically, we've only had a small number of fares for people to choose from. So if the lowest fare wasn't available, there tended to be quite a large jump to the next available fare. What we're doing now is having 8 different fare levels on all of our routes. So if you can't get that $60 fare, then there's likely to be a $100 fare rather than a $200 or $300 fare. So you're giving people more choice.
Don't the fares still include a rash of government taxes? How do you get past that?
Government taxes, on average, account for $1 in every 3 that you spend with LIAT. We live in a very price-sensitive market, and delivering value for money is something that we want to do as a business. I think the level of government taxation in our region is simply too high, and that's something that I have urged governments through various bodies to look at and address. I'm a realist, and I recognize that governments need to earn money. But I'm also of a view that if you stimulate a market with price, then you can drive additional volume. And I'd like to see some governments, whether they're OECS or CARICOM or whatever grouping it may be, say, well, look, let's try and see what effect a reduction in taxation might have to the overall growth in the market. Because I'm of a view that if you do stimulate price, then you're likely to end up with more volume, and therefore you can actually increase the tax take back to the government. It's a difficult decision for governments to make. I acknowledge that, and I understand it. And I think I should also, at the same time, acknowledge that a reasonable amount of the tax that governments collect on aviation is reinvested in aviation, and that's very good. But I think there is a middle way here that allows for a reduction in some of these taxes.
Are you actually optimistic that will happen?
I am of the belief that as an industry, if we talk about it long enough and often enough, I've made one suggestion myself, which I think is moderately risk-free for governments. Why don't we remove the tax on children traveling by air? Taxation on children is not something that one would necessarily applaud, and it represents a relatively low amount of the tax that governments collect. Why don't we remove the tax on children? See what happens.
This has been the Winn Weekender. On behalf of the Winn TV News team, I'm Andre Huey. Thank you for watching.